Hey there, personal health and wellness. Welcome to video one. We are going to jump right into this where we are going to look at our health dimensions. We are also going to see some of my own specific analysis of my health dimensions. And when we do this, we have to go back and reflect on that student learning outcome number one that we talked about, and that is assessing your own wellness. Well, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And I love that statement. Again, you cannot manage what you cannot measure or what you do not measure. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to look at our strengths. These are positive things that have happened. We're going to look at our weaknesses. These are negative things that have happened. We're also going to look at opportunities and threats. Now, opportunities are like strengths because they're positive things, but they haven't happened yet. Or maybe they could happen, but they just haven't happened or not currently occurring. Threats are also the same, that they could happen, but they haven't. Again, if they did, that would be bad. Opportunities, if they did, that would be good. And so that's one of the ways we want to begin by assessing our own health. Now, some of the things that we want to start with. We look at our wellness dimensions, and we will understand at the end of this video that there are 8 different wellness dimensions. And the first one is physical wellness. And physical wellness is our body shape, its functions, strength, endurance, but we also have to understand this is our resistance to disease and impairments. And so we typically think of physical health as being the only type of health, but we really need to understand that that's not a very accurate or mature way to approach this. And so we have to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, there is physical health. This is the number one thing that we think of. And if that's true, here is one thing that we also have to think of, and that is, how do we get physical health? Well, we can influence this in 3 ways. Number one, it's through physical activity and exercise. Number 2, it's through diet and nutrition. And number 3, it's through sleep. Those are the 3 things that we're going to talk to you about specifically in this class and give a lot of information about to help influence your physical health. Because yes, it is definitely the flagship health that we consider, especially when you took the course Personal Health and Wellness. Now, my question to you is, what do you do that helps to optimize your physical health? And if you don't know or really understand how to practice good habits, well, good. That's why you're here. And that's my focus, is to teach you. I want to give you real quick my own analysis. Remember the SWOT analysis of physical health or physical wellness. Number one, I am very excited and I can perform exercise habits 5 to 6 times a week because I enjoy them. That is something that I've already explained to you, that I am very zealous about exercise, right, and fitness. But also with that, number 2, I'm equally zealous and interested in my dietary habits. I pay very close attention to those. I also pay very close attention to my water consumption, staying hydrated. I also pay very close attention to supplements. And I'm going to give you very specifics on what I do with each, the food, the water, and the supplements later on. But for right now, those are disciplines that I have made a very important part of my life. And number 3 thing is, I have an incredibly supportive job and family that let me have the time to do these things. Again, I exercise 5 to 6 times a week. That's if that's running or that's biking or that's swimming or that's rowing. But I also throw in 2 to 3 days a week of lifting weights or CrossFit or something to get stronger, because I know the value that each of those bring. But also, those are my hobby times. And so I have to really balance that out. And sometimes I'm going to work out twice a day. But again, that's something that I enjoy doing, so it's not such a hardship. Some weaknesses that I have, and don't hate me for saying this, but I have family, and family comes first. And so that's a weakness to getting some of my physical wellness time in through exercise. Also, it challenges me, all the, sometimes to eat the right way or better. Um, and the other side of that is they're going to make some pretty, impressive moves with their own illnesses that are going to challenge my immunity. And that's number two. I'm also going to tell you that um, sometimes because of the way I eat, I typically will fast until noon or so, somewhere in there, before I break my fast. And when I do break my fast, I usually have a smaller meal, and then I reserve kind of a larger meal towards the end of the day. When I do that, it very, very commonly leads me to overeat, which is what this number three word is, hyperphagia. It's a medical term meaning that you overeat. And I know that, and I have to really pay attention to my satiety and make sure that when I feel full, that I kind of push back against continuing to eat, even though that food tastes so good. I have to digress. Number one on opportunities is this: I like to get up early. It is not a problem for me to get up at 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning, especially if I know it's because of a workout. Now, that helps if I go to bed early. And I'll talk about that in number two opportunity. But one thing I know is that if I can carve out that early morning time to get my workout in, it doesn't interfere with my family time, because my family always gets me first. And so if that's true, that I protect my family time, I also protect my workout time. And that's just part of discipline and habit. And yes, it was very difficult the first few times that I got up early in the morning and said, "Hey, I'm going to go work out at 4:30." Oh my gosh, what was I thinking? But it worked finally. Number two, though, is sleep prep habits. I make it a discipline that my phone is on do not disturb at 6 p.m. And I do that because I don't want to be disturbed away from my family time when I am at home by a phone call that has to do with work or anything like that. So unless I just go to my phone and look at it, I have no idea if I get a text message, a phone call, or an email, or any type of social media input for that matter. And that is just a good discipline for me, but also it keeps my eyes away from that screen. And I will tell you that I even try to remove myself away from television. Um, One of the other aspects of sleep prep habits is I try to avoid all caffeine for 10 to 12 hours before going to sleep. Number three, I'm a lifelong studier. I really like to study things before I get involved with them. But also, if I am involved with them, I like to study. If it has to do with things that I'm currently enjoying, then I will spend most of my time reading about it, listening to podcasts about it, watching YouTube videos about it, talking to people who are in the know. That's just the things that I do. If I'm going to do some rock climbing, then I'm going to go find somebody who rock climbs, and I'm going to understand all of the caveats around rock climbing before I even look at a wall. That's just one thing that I think is very important to development of my own physical health. I have some threats, and these are kind of unique to me, which they should be. That's my assessment of me. But number one is I have a family history of cardiovascular disease. My mom died at age 50. And one thing that I know is she died because she wouldn't quit smoking after two heart attacks, and it killed her. And that was a really rough thing for me to accept. But one thing that I've taken from that is that's a family history of cardiovascular disease. I don't want cardiovascular disease, so I'm very motivated to stay physically healthy. Number two, with that also came a lifetime, literally 18 years of growing up with two parents who smoked, and I was exposed to that smoke. And so I would be remiss to tell you that I'm not concerned about that quite a bit, that what that might do to my future health. Number three is I'm around kids, my own kids. I'm around students all the time. These people get sick. They're going to bring who knows what to the table, and I'm going to be around it. So chances are, if there's a stomach virus around, I'm going to get it. And I might as well get it earlier, because that means I won't get it later, or at least hopefully. I mean, that's the anticipation I have. Social wellness is the one that I really want to kind of do a deep dive in, and I'm going to do that later. But this is connected to deep, satisfying interpersonal relationships. And it's important because loneliness is one of the key contributors to a person's attempt or completion of suicide. And so we have to think about how that affects our whole personal health. It's a big deal. Harvard Medical Study of Adult Development says it's the single most important pathway to happiness. And the deep dive that I'm going to do is going to have this exact book about it here, but I hope you tune into it at the very end. And you don't have to, but it's a good little thought on communication, but also relationships in general. And we're going to bring in Aristotle, so it can't be too bad, right? Social wellness strengths for me. I've been married to the same woman for 16 years. We have 4 wonderful kids. I love being married. It's the best part of my life. She's the best part of my life. And number one is simply this: I get to talk to her and my kids a lot. And so I get lots of social stimuli. Number two, I will go on regular runs with friends. And my friends, to me, have probably developed more out of utilitarian purposes and pleasure purposes. We both like to do the same things. But inevitably, the people that I'm still running with, I've developed a real good relationship, meaning that I want good for them, they want good for me. More of that in the deep dive. But number three, I'm connected to a community group that meets every week in my home, as a matter of fact, and we get connected but also go through life together. There are people who have about the same income, about the same kids, who have the same struggles, are about the same age. And so it's nice to know that other people are doing life the same way, and the same things that are going on with them are going on with me, and we can share in that together. Number three is I have a coach who I meet with every Friday morning, almost exclusively every Friday morning, first thing, and we have deep conversation about what's going on. And he really helps to develop me. He breathes into me socially, but that helps me physically. It helps me intellectually. It helps me emotionally. It helps me spiritually. And kind of ironically, it also helps me environmentally, but I don't know if I want to get into that part yet. Weaknesses, I am family stretched. We're a family of 6. So if you don't know what that's like, it is insane sometimes to make social things happen because of the amount of kids. I also talk about that later in threats, and you're going to get more into that. Number two is I have 4 kids. They have commitments at school, ball, sports, friends, different things that are going to come up, and that's going to cause me to have to reschedule or cancel or make other plans. Number three is I'm seasonally invested. Right now, I'm getting ready for school to start. Right, we just started this semester, and so things are kind of hectic for me, and I'm kind of having to back off on all of the experiences that I want to have with my friends. I don't always get to have. My opportunities simply are that I have matured to the reality of what relationships are. The thing is we used to think that you got this best friend and they're going to be your best friend and they're always going to be there and you guys are going to spend tons of time together. But then you develop a relationship with a spouse or a loved one, and things change because you're spending more time with them, and then you get kids involved, and so things change again and that stretching happens, and you have to understand that relationships will change throughout your whole lifetime. And I need to tell you that I'm talking more to me than I am to you, because I need to know that message that people need different things at different stages of their life. Number two is I meet regularly with my group and my coach. That's an opportunity that I don't want to miss. It's just absolutely that good to me. Number three is I get impromptu activities with friends and family all the time. My wife told me the other night that the Weirsigs were coming over, and I was really excited because that meant that we were going to talk a little bit of science and life and spirituality and family and kids and mountain bikes and all good stuff and travel. I mean, it's just fun because I know that that's going to happen. And it's not that we get to do that very often, because they have kids and we have kids and we have commitments and they have commitments. And so again, it goes back into that reality of what relationships are and the maturity that you're going to have to deal with those relationships. Some threats: I am going to tell you and confess to you, I have incredibly bad anxiety and paranoia. And if you also have that, then please reach out to me. Let me talk to you about some of the things that I've done personally with that. We'll have a sit down conversation. I have other resources that I can connect you to that are great for that specifically. But, if someone cancels on me, I think that I've done something wrong. I think that they're mad at me. I think that I'm not worthy of their time. My goodness, the list just goes on and on and on. And how poor does that sound, right? But it's the truth. That's what I deal with. I also deal with family, work, and farm stuff that's going to come up. If a cow gets out and it's on somebody else's property, I'm going to go get it. And if I have to do that when we were supposed to meet the Weirsigs for dinner, well, doggone it, that's what I'm going to go do because it has to be done. I've got an investment I've got to take care of. And you know what? Things like that are going to happen. And number three is the reality is they're going to have stuff that comes up. A great example is I was supposed to have dinner with some friends tonight. They had to cancel because my friends' parents were having their 40th wedding anniversary and they said, hey, look, please come eat with us. Well, yeah, you should definitely go do that. And I shouldn't have feelings hurt over that. I should be cool and really encourage that they develop and basically celebrate things like that because you know what? That's just extending goodness into other relationships. Next on my list is intellectual wellness, and this is using your brain to meet life's challenges. And with that, we have to understand we're learning machines. We are plastic brain learning machines. That means our brains will flex and stretch and do all these things, not literally, but they do move and they change and they add neurons and all these new things are coming on. So our brains don't have a limit. And we used to think that, but we are at the technological epicenter of our history, right? And so with that, we're also at our informational epicenter. And that's a great place to be because for intellectual wellness, this is perfect. But we look at this and I think about my strengths here. Number one, I love to learn. I love to listen to podcasts, read books, watch YouTube videos. I love to study. I've already kind of talked about that. I like to really dive deep into things and understand what's going on with research and nerd out with some different abstracts and articles. I also like to micromaster. I fixed my sink from watching a YouTube video. My sink, I'm not a plumber. But when I did this and I watched this video and it was 5 minutes and this guy fixed his sink and then he taught me how to do it. And then I went in there and I fixed my sink and I walked out and I actually took some grease kind of rubbed on my face because it was so easy after watching this video. And my wife was like, wow, you worked real hard. I was like, yeah. And she was like, let me take you out for a steak. And I was like, yes. And give me a kiss right here. And she was like, take a shower first. And I was like, okay. But what I'm telling you is it's easy to work on our intellectual wellness now. Weaknesses for me, I don't always have time to do it. I mean, I'm going to push this back to the last. I do love to learn. I love to study. But unfortunately, for my wellness, it gets bumped a whole lot. I'm also professionally biased, meaning I want to learn and read about things that I like to learn and read about. So probably around fitness, nutrition, sleep health, every once in a while plumbing stuff, right, if I'm going to have to deal with that. I have incredible hyperfocus. And this sounds cool, like you may be thinking, oh, well, you're bragging. No, I'm not. I'm confessing it's bad. It's really bad because I will focus in on something, hone in on something so much that the outside world will not get my attention. It's happened before. The baby's crying, the baby's crying, the baby's crying. My wife is trying to give the other kids a bath, and I'm in there like reading a book. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I just didn't. And she's like, yeah, get up, close the book, go change the diaper. And I'm like, okay. Right. So it's not always a good thing. And that's why I claim it as a weakness. Opportunities is I get a lot of breaks from work because I'm a teacher. And so I can invest some of that time into learning. And I try to do that. My work encourages my development of my skills and my knowledge. And so I try to take advantage of that. And number three, there's tons of technologically driven applications. I mean, the podcasts are one, but there's tons of books on audio, and I've listened to books, during travel and trying to make up time, and that's a great way to do it. Some of my threats, and forgive me, I just absolutely did not save this. But number one is timing. I have to really be careful about when I put this stuff together. Number two is I am really stretched thin because I commit to a lot of things. And so I have to watch that part of my life. And if I overcommit, then it's definitely going to come in and take out some of my ability to give myself intentionality and learning. And number three is simply, you know, if I tell you that I'm growing older, it's because I'm growing older and I'm worried. I'm worried that things are going to start slipping, and so I know that happens with people. I have a great fear of losing knowledge. And maybe that's going to happen, maybe it's not, but I hope that it doesn't. And that's why I'm really passionate about learning as much as I can and maintaining that for as long as I can. Our emotional wellness is just our appropriate expression of our emotions. And it comes to mind here that we all will have difficult experiences that drain us. And Craig Rochelle says, if you cannot lead from the highest level or love from the deepest part of your heart, it's because you're emotionally depleted. And I want to say this: do you recharge better alone or with each other? I go into this in the deep dive at the end. And so if you want to kind of talk more about emotions, I'm going to encourage you to go there. I do want to go ahead and collect these others real quick for you. Number one, or the next one on the list, environmental wellness. Do you steward your earthly resources well? And this has a lot to do with our local surroundings, also protecting those resources. What are you doing out there that helps with that? And then using and participation in sustainable practices of agriculture, of, you know, what things are you using consistently? I have my 2 water bottles back here. I own 2 of them, and because I use these at work all the time, I almost always will not use a plastic water bottle in my hydration practices, because I'm really focused on the aluminum, because I can reuse it, I can wash it. That's just a sustainable practice for me, and one of the things that I think is my strength there. And then I want to end on this one right here, and that is spiritual wellness. And I want to say this, and I'll leave this towards the end. I want to be like super respectful here. Not everyone who watches this is going to have, or even, consider spirituality as a wellness component. And so, what I want to just say is this: I do. And I use this to help me understand that this brings the rest of it together for me. It helps me to understand where my purpose is, in a higher purpose. It gives my life meaning and it gives my life value. And so, if this is not something that you're focused on, number one, when you write your own SWOT analysis, then you just need to be very creative and truthful in saying these are the strengths as to why I don't. These are the weaknesses that may maybe come from that. Here's some opportunities that come from that. Here's some threats. But what I want you to understand is that, without pushing my beliefs on you, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just telling you what the data says and what the research says. This is a component of wellness. But your beliefs do come into context with your wellness. And a lot of times, if everything else is going wrong, or you're depleted in any of those other physical or emotional or intellectual wellness aspects, then maybe it's because of your spiritual wellness that's happening. It's just at least worth a consideration. So we look at all that, and what we understand is that the last two, occupational and financial, I'm going to give them their own little video. And I hope that you really get a lot out of those. But when you watch that, please understand these dimensions all interconnect. They're a continuum. That means that when one part of this wheel right here gets flat, it affects everything else. And so as we kind of grow from this, I hope that what you do is you kind of consider that with the aspects of wellness, that there is opportunities for you to do some pretty incredible things. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Watch financial and occupational literacy coming up next. See ya.